I don't know if that worked or not. I don't know if I should have done that, but it lets people watch on.
Oh, that's cool.
Uh,
I'm fine with this.
I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to click that option, and I'm not going to try to figure out what.
No, this is good. We're gonna keep it in. Let's keep it informal tonight.
All right,
Uh,
all right. Looks like Instagram should be working,
okay.
and so we just keep on talking. How's that? If anybody joins in, they join in.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I go to Knoxville a lot, and so I I had planned to go over either this week or next week. So last night I decided, knew I wasn't going over this week, but I decided let me see what mapping says about getting over to Knoxville. Basically, I got two options: drive up 77 into Virginia, up to 81 and come down, or go down to Atlanta and come up.
Could you go up? Could you go through like Murphy?
Look, I've the everything into the west is shut
Hmm.
down in some manner. Um,
So Highway
I had
70. That's right. 74 is closed in Asheville, I guess.
yeah, I looked at maybe going part of 26 is open, and you can take 26 up through Asheville. You can't take 26 up to 81, but 70 goes off of 26 and goes back into Greenville. And I knew before I even looked at that route, that route probably wouldn't even be available either because Greenville, Tennessee got hit hard as well.
Right.
Uh, they had one of their bridges, at least one of their bridges, get wiped out. And nope, you can't. There's no routes right now into Tennessee. They're all the roads are North Carolina's got a website. Is it called ncdrive.gov, something like that?
Right.
And they show all the situation on all the roads, and they tell you no option to be able to drive into Tennessee. Um, and that's if you should even be driving into the area. I'm certainly not going to try. There would be some 2 lanes I would try, but most I would not, and, of course, right now, I wouldn't try any at all. Too much, we've had too many mudslides and all that other kinda stuff, so
Yeah. It's. I just went on MapQuest right now,
mhm,
and like from how they're telling me to get to Knoxville. I live in, of course, in Hillsborough. They tell me to go up through Greensboro to Kernersville, up,
mhm.
I guess it's I-74, which becomes 77, and then that takes you then to Virginia, and then
81, all the way up.
81. Yeah,
Yep, all the way up to 81 and then come down.
they said it would
Um,
take me just a little under 5 hours to get to Knoxville.
right. That's a long drive. It's a
Yeah,
little bit longer for me, maybe from down here, I don't know, maybe it might be about the same, but the other thing you have to consider is that's the way all traffic is going. It's either going one of two ways, and that's either up to 81 or down to 85 and then coming up 75. Um,
right.
both if you're hauling, truckers or anybody that say going to Memphis as an example, then you're going to have to go one of those two routes. You going anywhere west of the mountains, that's kind of, let's say, on the central path of the United States, then you're going to have to go up or down. So
Yeah, it's just a brutal situation.
I have been watching a lot of YouTube videos and was watching one today of Marshall. And they're in Marshall. There's in their old courthouse, which really looks it's a nice looking building. But the guy that did the video said that and he's from Marshall. He understands that, and he pointed at a step and that the 1916 flood went up to, and it went to like two steps below a platform,
Right.
whereas this flood went up part way, I think halfway up the first floor or something like that. Said that go all the way up all those steps and then up, up even higher. So if that
Yeah.
information is accurate, then this flood was bigger, at least there.
Where was he? Where was this located? Was it actually in Asheville or
No, in Marshall,
Marshall? Okay, gotcha.
Marshall, North Carolina. Yeah.
I know that my grandmother lived in Old Fort back in 1916,
Uh
and that
huh.
area was basically just about washed off the face of the earth, and
Oh yeah.
a lot of people ended up, uh, you know, moving away. Now, back then, McDowell County only had 13,000 people in it, and now McDowell County is about three times that much, about
Right.
45,000 or so. But uh, back then though, you didn't have pavements. You just did not have pavement like you have now.
No, exactly. Well,
And
that flood, um, it it flooded the Catawba here. Of course, it flooded
right,
the Catawba, and all that had to, just like now, it all had to come down to here, and all along the Catawba, it created a lot of damage here in Mecklenburg County. Uh, there was an area in Charlotte that I grew up in called Lakewood, and it was called Lakewood because it was right beside. They had dammed a creek, and they had a nice little lake there, and they had some amusement rides and such, and it was kind of a place for people to go to in the area, and that whole area got flooded out and wiped out, and
I know
uh,
exactly where you're talking about. There was places all over Mecklenburg County that was known to flood back in the 80s, even
y-
1980s.
yep,
And my dad worked for the North Carolina Department of Transportation. He was in right of way. In the
hmm,
right of way department, if somebody's, let's say that a cemetery flooded and all of a sudden these caskets come up, for
yep,
whatever the reason, the DOT right of way had to get involved. And it's really tough when you have to find out first who the body is or the casket is,
right,
and then notify the family about what's going on. Uh, yeah, that used to. My dad used to watch the weather like religiously because he whenever it started looking like it was going to flood in Charlotte, he'd get really tense because that's the worst job ever having to contact all those people because of that.
oh yeah, I can't imagine having to deal with that, but knowing that expanse, so because it impacted, I did some research to try to find out why. We knew that there was a pond there
Right,
or a small lake when I grew up, but really didn't know much about it, and just had heard a thing or two, and maybe there might have been some amusement stuff there. And so about 15 years ago, I started doing some research, and that's when I learned about the flood of 1916, uh, and how bad it was in Charlotte, along the Catawba River. It was very bad. So, having seen that, I started wondering when the flooding started happening with Helen, how it might compare, because you could tell fairly early on that it was going to be significant. When I say fairly early on, I mean into Friday. It was already looking like it was going to be a very significant flood.
right.
Uh,
And it came from the flood of 2000 or 1916 flood. The storm originated in Charleston. It went up
Hmm.
through South Carolina. This one was actually probably, I don't know, maybe 150 miles west. Going into the Florida Panhandle. Actually, probably not even that far.
Yeah.
But a warmer body of water. Of course, in July the water is really warm. Down in the Atlantic too. But usually the interesting thing about it is most of the really intense storms are usually in September, August and September. Usually July the water hasn't warmed up quite as fast. Don't have as much energy.
Right.
That 1916 storm though, just a crazy amount of rain because before that storm came in, they had another weather event that caused about 6 or 8 inches of rain. So the area was already saturated, and then you saw what happened in the history books. So,
Right. Well, this is our peak time of the year
oh
for
yeah,
hurricanes, even though it dies out in
November.
November. It is the, late September, October's the peak time when we see, you know, this that span the time when Hugo hit. And if you remember, I guess it was 15 years ago, approximately, when we had those back-to-back hurricanes. And I remember seeing a picture from Freedom High School, of the field house being um, mostly submerged under water.
Right.
And by knowing that kind of stuff, and then seeing when I left Thursday, it was raining, and it rained hard here. We flew out up to Connecticut. My youngest son he got a naval promotion. He's now a chief petty officer.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so we flew up for that. And um, it was raining hard when we left. So I started looking at some of the sails, and this is on Thursday. And there were sails up around Wilkesboro that was 5 inches an hour um, that Thursday morning. So when I was sitting there in the airport, which probably would have been around 10:30, 10:30, uh, we had just here in my part of Charlotte, we had just that sail was dumping about 2.5 inches of rain an hour. And so I
Right.
started looking around at different sails, and up in Wilkesboro, yeah, 5 inches an hour. And then, Jim, I saw that one part of the mountains got a little over 40 inches of rain.
That's the thing is, there's no place for that water to go
Yeah,
after a certain way, and also the big difference between 1916 and 2024. Back in 1916, you had a lot more permeable soil. You didn't have nearly as much pavement. You didn't have nearly as many buildings and stuff. There was more places for that water to go.
right.
Now, you know, you know, concrete is, believe it or not, concrete is permeable, and it will absorb and tear up the road and everything.
Yep.
Pavement, to a certain degree, is permeable, but mostly impermeable. But that water has to go. Is going to go the path of least resistance. Like where I live in Hillsborough, which is uh, I don't know, 220 miles away from Asheville, I guess, 200 miles away, about 200 miles away. We got probably 5 inches of rain from that storm.
Hmm. Right.
Did you get a lot of rain in Charlotte? Was it
Yeah,
like
we
about
did.
5 or 6, 8?
Yeah, I don't know what the official is, but probably I don't know. I'd have to guess, and right now, and I think I heard something like somewhere between 4 to 6 inches, something like that.
So you got like what we did here.
Um, but then what we ended up getting was, of course, the Catawba River comes down through Old Fort. In fact, so the Catawba River has to come down and through, and we have the three lakes here, and all of the lakes reached. I think they all reached their highest set records for the amount above flood stage or full pond, excuse me.
Right.
Um, I think they all did. Mountain Island Lake, which is the lake in between the two. I call them the two nuclear power lakes because we have a nuclear power plant on Lake Norman and one on Lake Wiley, and then Mountain Island sits in between, and there's a generation plant there. Um, but that whole area and through there, because that's a small channel of it's a small lake. It's not a real wide lake, very narrow lake, and so that water rose there real high. Uh, Lake Lure, do you ever you spend much time in Lake Lure?
I have not. I've probably been to Lake Lure maybe two times my or
Okay,
2 times in my adult life at most, maybe just one time.
Lake
Several
Lure,
times when I was a kid.
Lake Lure really got slammed. They
That's
thought
in
that
that's in Rutherford County, right? Or is that
it
just?
is exactly. It's right there at Chimney Rock. So
Oh yeah. Now, where's Maggie Valley? Is that
Maggie Valley is it's on west of there. Um, you know where the exit to get off for Waynesville for Western Carolina.
right?
You go the other way. You go down. You drop down to Maggie Valley. Maggie Valley is kind of between Asheville and Cherokee.
Okay, so it's,
If you kind of draw a straight line between Asheville and Cherokee, um,
Rutherford's more east, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, Rutherford's southeast. So
Southeast,
Rutherford
yeah.
County's southeast of Asheville, maybe more east than south, but it's
Now,
southeast of.
how
I
far is
fish. I
how far
fish
is
there a lot. That's my favorite place to
oh
fish.
okay.
Uh,
How
yeah.
far is like Shelby from Lake Lure?
Shelby from Lake Lure. You can be at Lake Lure in
Hour or so.
less than an hour. I'm 30 to 45 minutes probably.
My my
Maybe not
grandparents
even that. Yeah, but
my
I'd say
grandparents
30 minutes.
my grandparents used to love going to get apples in the down in the right past in Rutherford County, Polk County area. Some
Uh
of the
huh.
best apples in the states.
Well,
We'd go down there late October and get a lot, and then take my grandfather up and drive my grandparents around. We'd go to. You've ever been to Anders Geyser over in McDowell County?
I know where it is.
It's not much to look at, and it used to bore me half to death,
Uh
but it
huh.
meant a lot to my grandparents to go there. So we get out there, thing never goes, and but anyway, it was had a lot of memories of going there when I was taking my grandparents down to the mountains.
Well, I've been looking and I can't find, but my one of my favorite places to fish. It's not a great it's not like you're going to catch the biggest fish because of what it is, but there's right there at Lake Lure, there's some bottomless pools, and there's the creek that comes out of those pools is called Pool Creek, and I love fishing Pool Creek. It never gets stocked. It's always native. They're rainbows. They're not what you call a native. A native fish in North Carolina, it's actually a char. It's a brook is the fish that are native to
All
North
right.
Carolina. But we have brown and rainbow, and the prettiest rainbow I've ever caught are right there in Pool Creek. So I wanted to see how it fared. The lake is like covered in debris. Just it's awful looking. Surprised that the there's a place there, Lake Lure Inn. The movie Dirty Dancing was filmed
Oh
there.
yeah.
Um, that it remained. Actually, had a wedding there on Friday, I think Friday or Saturday, but that whole area, Jim, and looking at it, and so as some of the conversation that was going on in text, about if if teens were to in the West were able to play and would play in the spring and all of that, what was kind of driving some of my comments there was I have been looking heavy at video of what's going on and you can't see everything, but
Right.
the devastation. I watched one guy, and I can't remember now who they were, but the guy he has a helicopter. He does search and rescue. He goes to he's been to a bunch of hurricanes, to do search and rescue. And he said that this was the worst devastation he's ever seen.
Right.
And so he's seen Katrina, and he's seen other hurricanes here obviously in the southeast here. Um,
Well, there's
I,
a big difference. Like when the eastern part of the state flooded 25 years ago from Floyd,
hmm
there's a big difference because first thing, the ground is much more flat.
Yep.
There's a lot more wide open spaces. You don't have forest all over the place.
hmm
Uh, you have better chances to get people in out of where they need to be. Also, the eastern part of the state is kind of densely populated, to be honest with you. Northeastern North Carolina's not a lot of people live there, but you can get there's a lot of roads that a lot of back roads you can get to and stuff. You don't
Right.
have to worry about mudslides. The flooding, what you have to worry about, of course, is the rivers. But once you get past the rivers, usually you're in pretty good shape. You're going to have some flash floods here and there, but big difference in the mountains. Mountains, mudslides. You got water that's still coming down from the mountain, drowning or draining down. Water's
hmm
going to go downhill, and
Well, you got mudslides, you got rock slides,
yeah,
because
rock slides. Yeah,
that rock, even though it may be like a whole rock cliff, as all that rain's coming down, it's already been loosened in some manner, and it starts cutting more grooves. And uh, usually, all the rock slides that happen say up on 40, um, in the same area that got part of the road washed out. That's where all the rocks, or most of the rock slides occur, the real big rock slides, and they always happen after rain. Um, the thing about the East, Gym, is that because of everything that you mentioned, it also makes it easier to find people. Um,
right.
but up in the mountains, they're over in this valley, over this mountain, down in here. They're scattered out, and they're they're not easy to get to, especially if any of the roads that happen to be usable to get to them are, no longer usable. They become near impossible to get to. So,
Tell you what, Dale, I have my screen open. I was want to kind of
yeah.
I want to share. I want to look at the areas that we think are the hardest hits,
hmm
and let's see here. Share the window. So I got the map of North Carolina here, and I know some of the areas. I'll talk to Joe Glass or texted with Joe Glass. I know
hmm
Hickory is fine. I think where you start getting into some problems is probably around Valdez,
Right.
like maybe Drawn, East Burke. The Morgan or the Burke County schools are going to have problems, and then you go to McDowell County. That's going to be tough. And then let me scroll out a little bit here. Of course, Asheville. I'm not sure about places like Brevard. I know Hendersonville got hit pretty bad.
Well, interesting. And I think it was on the ncdrive.gov. They they've got a nice view of the state, and that map shows you, kind of like in color, you can see it might be a blue color or something, but it shows the portion of the state that is like inaccessible.
Right.
Um, it has all all the counties highlighted, with the exception, which I thought was really wild, the furthest west county. Um, so out past Franklin, um, what is that most western county?
Oh, you're talking about like Cherokee County, Murphy, or are you talking about
Yeah,
like
out in the yeah, exactly. Is it Cherokee County? Is that right?
Cherokee. That's where
Yeah,
Murphy
over
played.
near Raven Gap is
Yeah.
where it would be. Raven Gap, Georgia. So it's really like almost west of Hickory, everything west of Hickory um, is devastated. I don't know. I mean, we've got situations like here in Charlotte. I'm not in Charlotte, but in Gaston County, where their water is muddy. So their normal drinking water is muddy. So
Yeah, it can
um,
be easily contaminated. Now,
exactly.
now, when I heard about Murphy, like the Smoky Mountains, Murphy, Bryson City, Robbinsville, they weren't nearly as impacted as like northwest or northeast of them, like
Right.
Asheville and that area. Do you think that area is going to be playing football, like
I don't
Murphy,
know. I mean, that's a good question. And
Murphy, Andrews, Robbinsville, Hayesville?
who would they play other than themselves?
Yeah, that's luckily they're in conference play right now.
Um,
So you got Murphy, Andrews, Hayesville. They're all in that area. Robbinsville, those four. There's Bryson City and Cherokee. Those areas probably, if any of the teams in the West might be playing, it might be those six teams there.
well, any of the mountain teams, let's say,
Yeah.
because there will be teams like Cherville, Mountain Island. So I'm thinking about some 1A teams here in the West that will be playing.
Oh yeah.
And what will they do when it comes time for playoffs? That was one of my questions in our uh, chat today was, okay, well, what's the plan? What would be your plan for playoffs for the teams that remain playing? Because there will a lot of the 1A teams are going to be wiped out of playing, and but some will be remain playing, and 2A teams, some 2A teams around. 2A's the mountains. The this will not impact 2A as heavy as it impacts 1A.
Oh yeah. 1A is going to be the one that's going to be. Yeah. You got like Mitchell, uh, Mountain Heritage. Those two teams, they're a good chance of going deep. I mean, it's Murphy's always a contender. Robbinsville, they're down this season, but they're still not a team to look past. I mean, the other schools like Avery. I see that Kerry said that Avery's got a away game today. They might have a schedule. I don't know if they'll be able to play or not.
Right.
Watauga, I mean, from what I understand, over in Boone, things are not looking that great over there either.
No, they're not. No, I've got a friend that lives in Boone, and they're there's I don't know that they're struggling, say, as bad as Chimney Rock and Marshall and some of these other places that I've seen, Marion, but they're hit pretty hard.
And then you got places like over in Ashe County where West Jefferson's located. I don't think they got hit quite as bad. I do have a friend's whose parents own a place in West Jefferson, and they had some damage there, but
Right.
it wasn't catastrophic like we've seen in like places like Swannanoa and Burnsville and
Yeah, Black
Black Mountain.
Mountain. Yeah, that whole area there.
Miller's Creek got hit. I don't know if they got to a point where they're not going to be able to play football. That's where West Wilkes is, but they got hit pretty bad. I think you said Wilkesboro had a lot of rain.
Wilkesboro was getting a lot of rain Thursday. I don't know how they fared overall, but they're a step off of the mountains. Um, they the storm impacted even part of the Virginia mountains, so um, they still probably got a lot of rain.
Right.
But maybe in a situation like that, you're just looking at your normal flash flood type situations, not. not some of this devastation that we saw.
Have you seen anything about Lenore by chance?
Uh, I did not. And Lenore, when I was thinking about Marion, I was thinking, well, I wonder what Lenore, you know.
Yeah, Lenore is like kind of off the beaten path in a lot of ways. They're not that far from Morganton, not that far from Hickory.
Right, exactly. Um,
Then you get to the areas that I think when it's all said and done, places like Linville Falls, that had gotten hit really bad.
oh gosh,
Spruce,
so are
Spruce,
you
Spruce Pines.
you've been to Linville Falls?
Oh, I
I'm
have.
sure.
Oh yeah.
So I saw some video that there was still some fall, but there wasn't a lot of fall. The water was coming over so fast and so much that maybe it was like halfway up the falls right there.
Right.
Maybe three quarter. Um, the Wiseman's View is one of my favorite places to go to. Have you been to Wiseman's View?
I have not. I don't. Well, actually, I probably have and just didn't know about it.
So Wiseman's View is on the gorge side of the Limble River, so it's just below the falls. It's up on if you were looking upriver at the falls, it's on your left-hand side. Um,
Gotcha.
it's it's one of the places that for you to even to go to Wiseman's View, I'm pretty sure you have to sign in with the you have to there's a forest rangers station up there, and you have to sign in if you're going into the gorge. You have to at least put your name in and state where you're at. So if something happens, they've got some idea who might be there. Um, if you are down at Lake James and there's a road that goes along the gorge. Now, I wonder what that road is like right now. It's not
Oh
a paved road.
yeah.
It's it's rock and dirt, and there's a couple of places, a couple of wine backs that they're so bad that they have put asphalt down on those cutbacks, but it's an interesting, it's an interesting, drive if you've never done it. You might consider it sometime, but, uh,
No,
I
this
would
here,
ex I'd expect the Linville River and Lake James probably got hit very hard.
this area right here, Spruce Pine. That place was basically underwater. Their
Yep.
commercial district. It was awful. Bakersfield was really hit bad.
Spruce Pines, where you
And
get high quality quartz from.
oh yeah.
So I think I don't know if they're the only, but they might be the only. They're either the only or one of the only suppliers of high quality quartz. So quartz that's used in computers and chips, etc. Um, comes out of spruce pine. That's so that industry's expect the electronics industry to potentially see a supply chain issue because of that.
Now I think I heard that a good portion of Highway 19 over in Burnsville was just pretty much washed off.
Hmm.
And of course, I mean that's just shouldn't be saying that. I'm not trying to sound callous, but
Switch
it is what it is.
switch your open up another window for ncdrive.gov.
Just do that right now and see drive.gov.
Yeah. Did I get it right? Let me see.
Drive NC. Okay, it's Drive NC.
Drive NC, that's it. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Drive
let's see.
NC. And it'll show you a map, one that you can see the map, you can see the whole affected area there, and then you can see all the markers where construction or known roads are out. As you can see there, so the very,
Oh,
very, very western part, um,
Cherokee's fine.
yeah,
I think this is Clay County down here, Swain County, Graham County.
yeah, exactly. So
So this right here actually is it's going even up to Ashe County.
yeah, well, the actual damage goes on up into Virginia, but they only show North Carolina. You'd have to go to a Virginia website to see how it carries into Virginia and into Tennessee. Um, but that area, kind of northwest of Asheville, is where Greenville is, um, in
Right over
Tennessee.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, that area got really slammed bad. There's sometimes I drive that way, and I've been on that bridge that got washed out there.
Hmm.
But all those roads are inaccessible right now. You can't take them over into Tennessee. So my thought is that there's so much infrastructure damage right now.
This is what I was thinking of. The entire bridge was destroyed over in Burnsville.
Hmm. Oh, there were a bunch of bridges that got destroyed. Um, so people don't have homes. People don't have automobiles. A lot of them don't have drinking water. Um, I don't know when school will be able to start back for a lot of these people. I don't think there's. Gary made a comment. He thought there might be a new norm in 5 months. I bet there's not a new norm in a year. Uh, I-40, as an example, I just use as an example. Interstate 40 is not projected to be reopened for a year, and the federal government will put all resources that they can at opening up 40 and 26 because they're both important interstates for travel in and out of the state. So,
I mean, there's just no way you can get into a lot of these places. Even here, I was looking at like side roads you go into, Cane Creek Mountain Roads,
and
the shoulders.
I love Cane Creek too. That's a great place as well. That's a great area.
That road got washed away. The shoulder did. Burke County. Let's see. That's bridges closed, structural damage. Yeah, and the thing about it is, first thing, these roads are not going to be passable for the next 5 weeks. Not all of them. There might be limited. Some of them will be where you can, at least get from maybe to from if you were in Shelby, maybe be able to go down Highway 74 eventually. But even then, though, I mean, I was just looking on 74. Look at all this stuff here.
Exactly, because I looked at, well, can I drive to Chattanooga? Because sometimes I would drive. That's a long drive, taking 74, 64 into Tennessee. It's a very long drive, but it's a nice scenic drive. But no, I when I looked at that, it was like absolutely not. Uh, and some of those roads are, oh my gosh.
And that's the thing about it is, uh, could you imagine? Let's say Murphy got they get a host a home game, and let's say you're Thomasville, and you have to go to Murphy. How would you get there?
It ain't gonna happen.
It's not going to happen.
No,
How's
it's not.
Murphy going to meet them in a neutral site? I mean, it's just
Well, that damage, though it's not as bad, but that damage dips down into Georgia, South Carolina.
right.
So right there at the last, red marked area, if you go straight down south, That damage is into, I think that's in the Blairsville. Is that in the Blairsville area?
Right here's Blairsville, right
Yeah,
below.
there's Blairsville's just west. So um, maybe Helen, in that area. You might could come down and around. I don't
Try to get
know.
try to get to Greenville or somewhere. Greenville, South Carolina, that is.
Yeah. So you might be able to scoot through to Clemson and then bring Clemson across from Clemson over and up. I don't know. Um, I just honestly tend to believe that there will be no high school sports. Any of the schools that how we gonna say that? If schools can't participate right now, they're probably not going to be able to participate in 3, 4, 5 weeks. I would not be surprised if winter sports for much of that area is knocked out. Um,
Just kind of looking at this map though, uh, I'm really worried about Burke County. I don't think they're going to be able to do anything in Burke County for several weeks. Probably, maybe the rest of the season. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure about. Oh, what's the
well,
place here? This is part of
play
Caldwell County.
so high schools like Freedom. I know. Chris mentioned the other night he talked to coach and again, Freedom. This happened in the other hurricane events 15 years ago, where the field house got flooded. And so if your field house gets flooded, that's all your equipment. So
Yeah,
you're
they've
storing
lost
your
everything.
pads. Yeah. So you might be able to recondition it. Who knows? But it ain't gonna get reconditioned now.
Not
It's just
now. Yeah.
no, not now. Um, the only way they could function with equipment is if somebody, some uh, so the Panthers or something bought all new pads and everything, helmets and everything for everybody. But then they got to be able to get there, and I don't see that happening. And a lot of those people aren't going to have places to sleep. So they're probably there's going to be people evacuating out to live somewhere while either a home is rebuilt or they move out and they don't come back.
Right.
This is one of those devastating things that I don't see in a couple of weeks. This
Yeah,
being
I don't either. And right now, um, I think the teams I think that are going to probably going to be gone are like Avery County. I don't see Mitchell. I don't see Yancey County, Madison County playing. I don't really see Buncombe County schools playing anytime soon. I know that some of the private schools are supposedly able to play, but I mean, even then, I mean, there's curfews right now going out where they don't want you to be out on the road after 8 o'clock at
exactly.
night or so.
Well, they
I mean,
really don't want you and I, as an example, to even drive up into that area.
yeah,
Um,
and
so they
I,
want
I
us,
trust them on that too.
yeah, they're like, stay out. Uh,
Yeah, basically they don't have to tell me that twice. I got the picture after saying
exactly.
all this stuff.
It's just like, I'm gonna say it, be it political or not. You were talking earlier about how some people are being about political with the rescue stuff, and um, of course, people have been being political about why aren't people like when and Biden has done a flyover. I don't even think he should have done that
I
because
agree. I don't think you should have either.
that tied up airspace, and
Yeah.
you know he can see everything he needs to see from drones and satellite and just stay out. Although he did wait until Cooper said to come, but I wouldn't have told him to come for another week or two. I wouldn't want anybody uh, of that kind of stature coming in and impacting rescue because, as I mentioned in our chat, there's probably going to be some people that died today because they couldn't get water,
Hmm.
and they haven't had water in the last well, since the event,
Yeah. So, gosh, 5 days from the go,
exactly. So
Yeah.
there's people, I think, without question, dying right now because they don't have the necessities of life, which is water, is the number one necessity, and then of course food. But uh, they've got infections. One of the things that caught my attention was the other day I saw a request for people to send chewable Benadryl and EpiPens. And the reason is because Yellow Jackets all up in that area is flooded. Yellow Jackets live in the ground, so their homes are destroyed. So now the Yellow Jackets don't have homes and they're flying around everywhere and they're stinging people. So we don't think about these things, but there's so many. This is more than just a storm going through. And, for me, I wasn't here, but if I'd have been here, I'd have lost power for 12 hours and,
Right.
you know, been been okay. Um, I'm above ground. I'm above flood areas here.
I think a lot of people have a lot of good intentions, and you have these people coming in from Florida, Georgia, whatever, and they had their helicopters, and they did not, they didn't follow protocol. They were getting in the way. They didn't
Hmm.
get back. They're in front of a camera, they're cussing like a sailor, and saying, well, they threatened to arrest me if I went back up there. And the thing is, yeah, you're impeding the rescue. I mean,
Well, now one guy, I don't know if you saw this, but one guy that flew his helicopter up, he checked. There was no airspace restrictions or
right?
anything.
I
He
saw
flew
that.
up. He flew up to Chimney Rock, and he flew up, and he saw. So you saw that one where there was a
Yeah,
man and the woman.
woman.
He
Yeah,
he rescued the woman,
and then
and then
yeah,
yeah, the
he had
fair fire
his son. He had his son with him, right?
had his son with him.
Yeah,
Fire chief said him, and that sounded more like a not a concern of safety or impeding anything. Sounded more like a guy, with his big stick.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. That was, but that's not representative of what the rescue is supposed to, or the government's answer is to it. So
right, but there
yeah,
there are people that shouldn't be going up trying to do rescue
oh yeah,
that have been, and they're just getting in the way.
yeah.
Carrie said
Brevard got hit
Brevard
bad.
got hit, and I got to thinking. I was actually thinking about that the other day. Cedar Mountain. Have you ever been to Cedar Mountain?
I don't think I have.
Cedar Mountain's a great place. You ever get a chance, go. If you're in the Brevard area, go to Cedar Mountain. Cedar Mountain is, I think the whole mountain is still owned by DuPont.
Okay,
Um, and DuPont has a plant, which you'd never know there's a factory, a chemical plant. Um, they make film kind of a chemical, but you never know it was there. They did such a great job of carving out just the area to put the plant in. I always made the comment that it looked like they flew the plant in there with a helicopter and dropped it in. But there's a state park there as well, so waterfalls, and it's a
mm,
beautiful place. And I imagine that, wow, just knowing knowing that terrain, and the storm definitely was bad in that area. The
yeah,
rain was. I bet it did get uh, hit hard.
yeah. So I think I heard Canton, part of Pisco High School, and
Yes,
their football field got hit pretty bad.
Canton got hit. Canton was, uh, and what's the other?
Was it Waynesville? They get hit.
Well, Waynesville's on west of Canton, but Waynesville got hit too. Um, Inca. I was thinking about
Oh, okay.
Inca. Some
That's in Buncombe County. Yeah.
yeah. So Inca's coming back east of Canton. I'm not sure. I'm sure they must have been hit because the French Broad, which is not too far from there, um, the French Broad, runs through just east of there, not much east at all. It goes up to, I don't know if you know this, but it goes up into Tennessee. It goes up
Right.
north and over into Tennessee. It's
Does it flow north?
yeah.
That's that's one thing that keeps on bothering me for whatever reason. Seeing a river flow north, it shouldn't. It's going to
Well,
flow the path of
no,
least resistance, but
no, it should catch your attention. If you don't know, I'll explain to you. The New River, the Nile River. So the Nile River is assumed to be the oldest river on Earth.
right,
It flows opposite direction than all other rivers near it. The New River does as well. The New River starts in North Carolina near Blowing Rock and goes up into West Virginia and dumps into the Ohio River system. So it flows north. Old rivers, the old rivers, at one time, all rivers flowed that way.
right.
And then I don't know what the event was, if it was one of the magnetic pole shifts or something geology wise happened, and it caused rivers to change course. And except for rivers like the French Broad, the New River, there's a few rivers that meet that criteria, flowing
Right.
in the opposite direction. Uh,
Well,
but that whole
don't you
yeah,
have a
go ahead.
continental divide around that area also?
Yes, you do. Yep, yep, exactly.
Uh,
That's where the continental divide is at. Um,
how about Hot Springs, Mars Hill? Have you heard anything about that?
I have not.
Now, I saw a video of Montreat College, and they were looking at in the basement. I don't know if you saw this or not, and the
Mhm.
water kept on rising and rising and rising, and there you could see things just floating around there, and uh, they you could see where the used to be basically a walkway where all the
Right.
kids would walk, and it looked like just running rapids. It was it's just
I
amazing about just the volume of water.
I think Lake Junaluska, um, which is also west of Asheville. If you know where it is, it's the Pigeon River feeds from it. I think they got hit uh, pretty badly too.
Now, just thinking about the school systems like Buncombe County, I don't know how you're going to be able to run the bus routes right now.
Exactly.
You can't do it. It's a safety hazard. I don't see Mitchell County, Yancey County, Madison County, a lot of those areas having school just out of safety concerns right now.
Yeah, there's too much infrastructure damage.
Yeah.
And you don't rebuild a bridge overnight. You
No.
don't fix roads that have been partially washed out, to washed out. You don't fix those overnight.
Well, a lot of times with a bridge, when you replace a bridge, you have to make a temporary bridge beforehand to
Yeah.
reroute the traffic, and then you fix the old bridge, and then you can do it. But there's no first thing you have to do is get a temporary bridge in there just to help the flow of traffic until you can get what
If
you
you
need
do,
done.
well, I think what they'll probably do is just keep those roads closed until because the build a bridge, it's going to take probably the same amount of time to build a proper bridge as it would a temporary, unless you brought in pontoon bridges. And
Yeah,
I wondered about that. Should the Army Corps of Engineers or something? I did see where yesterday Biden authorized the 82nd Airborne, a battalion, which could be up to 1,000 troops to deploy to the area to help. I don't know if it was just for North Carolina or for all of the mountains, um, but they can do proper search and rescue and some other important things. Then the Army Corps of Engineers could help um, with the rebuilding of our infrastructure, and maybe we should do that. Maybe we should deploy them, and I don't know. Our pontoon bridges are good. They're good to run, equipment from one part of side of a river to another when you're trying to advance a mechanized force.
Right.
We use them so we could run cars across them. So maybe they could build some temporary bridges, but then you got to build a temporary road.
Yeah, exactly. And I hate
That's
to say this, there's only so much pavement that you can lay in a period of time. It takes a
well,
long time to pave roads.
exactly, and in some of those locations, it's not like you've got a big wide field that you can, okay, we're going to run another road over here. No, there's a wall of stone to your left, that you don't. If you go anywhere, you're going to have to knock out stone. Kind of like how they built I-40. That's
Right.
something I'd love to find, Jim. And I know your father worked with North Carolina DOT, right?
Right.
Um, I would love to find pictures of I-40 when they were first building it. So when they were blasting rock out, I'd like to see what the areas where I-40 runs
Right.
looked like before they put a road there. Um,
I know the part of I-40 that from Raleigh to Wilmington, that road, that part of the interstate didn't really come into fruition until the basically early to mid '90s.
yeah, I
Uh,
remember when it opened up. Actually,
that
yeah,
that was one of the best events ever for the state of North Carolina.
yeah. You could shoot yourself down to Wilmington very quickly from up in the Raleigh area.
Right.
I'd just love to see some of those pictures of I-40 prior to there being I would hope they took some pictures.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, they did. There's all kinds of was it topology maps and
mhm.
so forth. You know where Highway 52 is over that
Oh, yeah.
goes. Well,
Yep.
back in the 30s, it was actually called Highway 80, and
Mhm.
it went up from basically from uh, oh gosh, was below Wadesboro over in Morven, North Carolina, all
Right.
the way up through where modern day Wake Forest University is,
Uh-huh.
and I guess it goes all the way up to Mount Airy. But that used to be Highway 80, and like a lot of those roads, like the old Independence Boulevard, I
Yep.
forgot what they called it. It was,
It
I
was
mean, it
70. So Independence was 74. Oh,
for it
if you're
was
talking
part
about
20,
Independence in Charlotte.
yeah,
Yeah, it's Highway 74.
and part of it one time was 2427, and
But
it kind of
2427 goes north up to Albemarle.
right.
It comes so it crosses perpendicular to 74. Now,
And I'm
it
talking about like
may
back in the early eight or late '80s. I think is when they kind of rerouted 2427 a little bit in the Mecklenburg County area.
well, some of 2427 may, because that happens in some places, and I don't
Yeah,
remember if it happened here, but one road will share several highways.
right. I think it's part of '74 at one time.
It may
Small.
have it may have been. I don't remember now, but yeah, it could have been. I'd have to see where it comes in from the south. Um, so it may have came up, hit 74, went east a little bit, and
Yeah.
then came on up
Right.
north to through Albemarle.
Yeah. Of course, 2427. You get into Albemarle. It's also Highway 73 is on the same route,
That's right. Yeah.
and 73 goes up down to Mount Gilead and
Hmm.
down where it used to be West Montgomery. But uh, it's but going back to the season though, it's going to upset the apple cart with the whole state's going to be impacted. Obviously, more of the western part of the state, but even the schools that are going to continue to play, they're going to be impacted because they might, like if you're East Burke and if East Burke can't play the rest of the season, which I don't know at this point what their
Right.
situation is. They play a bunch of Catawba County schools like Maiden, Bandies, whatever. That's
Yep.
another game possibly lost. So
Yeah. I think it's gonna have a multitude of impacts. I think probably the biggest that we will initially see, besides some games being lost in the regular season, is going to be how the playoffs get for 1A. I don't
right.
think it's going to impact 2A that much. There might be some 2A teams that get in that wouldn't have gotten in because a couple of 2A teams don't make it. But I think for the most part, 2A is going to be okay. But 1A is going to lose probably over half the field.
Oh yeah, it's
Um,
gonna be a lot.
so how do you restructure that playoff? Do you cut the playoff in half? If you because you there may not be enough 1A teams to fill it, to a proper
You're not gonna have
number.
not gonna have 32 teams in the West at this
No,
point.
exactly. I
You
don't.
might have 20 or say. I mean, you got teams that'll still make it from the West would be like Eastern Randolph, Thomasville, North Rowan, Albemarle will be in there, South Stanley will be in there, Mount Airy. Uh, you got your Star Mounts and um,
And,
those things will
you'll
definitely
probably
be.
see like Mountain Island Charter, and it might allow a school like Cherville to be able to get in.
Bessemer
Um,
City will be in there.
Bessemer City. So yeah, those schools will find a way to get into the playoffs because of it, maybe.
And then like with two-way, you got Brevard, Madison, who's probably not going to make the playoffs anyway, or Owen. Both of them were not
Hmm.
really. I don't think either team had won a game, but Brevard was a big name.
Right.
Um, I don't know about East Rutherford, Chase, and RS Central. If they'll be able to play or not. I'm hoping they'll be able to, but you just don't know at this point.
Well, that area was, the Broad River,
They're impacted.
they were impacted. So,
Yeah.
uh, I don't know, but there's other 2A teams slightly east of them that could fill in.
And
Um,
then you got like with 3A, the big one I'm thinking of is AC Reynolds. I don't know if they'll be able to play. They're in Fairview. Very few got hit bad.
yeah, I don't think so. I was thinking, okay, out of the big schools out of the mountains, which two real big ones would be AC Reynolds and Watauga. Watauga
Yeah.
being 4A. Um, they probably will not play. Uh, but again, 3A's pretty heavy from the foothills on to
Right.
the east. We have a lot of 3A teams, so I think we'd still be able to have playoffs.
The big one
I
would
mean, a
be
full
AC.
complement of playoffs.
Right. The big one would be AC Reynolds. I
Yes.
mean, you're going to have teams like West Henderson, who's a very good team, North Henderson, East Henderson, Inca.
Hmm.
Trying to think who else. North Buncombe. Um, see, TC Roberson's a 4A school. Asheville's a 4A school. Uh, those teams would be gone. McDowell County 4A. I don't see them playing.
Right.
Freedom's a 3A team. I think Patton's already suspended their two-way program this year. They don't even have football.
Right.
1A Drawn. I mean, Drawn's a 1A team. That's another 1A team that might not play.
That's right. I
Uh,
think 1A is going to be hit hard with this.
Dale, I know we talked about this off the air, but this has been a very hard week for me to focus on anything but the storm. It's football
Yeah.
just doesn't seem important right now.
Jim, when Gary sent his message out, and I love Gary, And Gary's thinking, okay, how might these teams be able to play um, in the spring? I got a bunch of messages I didn't send. They weren't bad messages. It was just a lot of explaining why I didn't think they would even be playing in the spring, um, because of all the infrastructure, et cetera. I, and the honest thing was, I really didn't even want to think about people playing in the spring or whether they were going to play in the playoffs because it's just like a low priority right now. It's so
I
low.
mean, yeah, there's my priorities right now is A, get them the bare necessities to survive.
Hmm.
B, get them some type of shelter, some place where you can actually go move, transportation, and right now there's no transportation.
Yep.
Shelters is the luck of the draw. Food, the bare necessity, food and water. Unless you had a lot of water saved up, you might be in trouble right now. Uh, then you got the school stuff. I mean, those schools can't open unless they can run buses.
That's
I mean,
right.
if like in Stanley County, you used to have places out in the middle of nowhere, like where I live near the Murray Mountain. We still have ice, and the kids over in Richfield be, they haven't seen snow or anything for a few days.
Hmm.
School was still closed because we were the ones that had the ice, the snow still around. But I mean,
Well, and
that's
there's
other thing.
power is going to be a problem though.
Power,
Duke
yeah,
Duke Power has what they call there's substations on a sled basically, so they can haul a substation in, set it up, and provide power as long as they can get power to it,
right.
um, and then worry about the infrastructure. Gives them time to check the infrastructure, et cetera. But they can only do that they don't have like enough to set in every neighborhood and every school. So obviously hospitals and the important resources are getting those
Right.
first. I don't know if they would set them up at schools or not. And quite honestly, if you've seen some of these videos, if any of this water got into the schools, the schools got to be rebuilt.
Oh yeah, it's a health
The
issue.
interior
Mold.
at least, yeah.
There's environmental issues involved. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, you have to go in and clean everything and take you might be able to leave the structure maybe, but
Right.
everything inside has gotta be replaced.
I just don't see a lot of those schools opening probably this month, maybe even not next month. I mean, it's
I bet you some schools don't open
2025.
this year. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it might be in 2025, and then I mean, if so, help me, if we get a really cold winter, a lot of snow and ice out there, that's going to delay everything even further.
exactly.
It's a bad situation. But now about Gary's point, though, I like what Gary. If we didn't have to worry about all these other figures and all that stuff like that, I
Mhm.
like giving this kid some type of hope.
Yes.
To to at least play 4 games or something like that in the spring, be able to play multiple sports. I like the idea, and I said it on our show on Tuesday. Nothing can be off the table at this point. We got to keep them with some hope, and it's
Ex Yep.
hope is one thing that keeps me happy. Yes, and the other thing is I saw these people trying to politicize this stuff. It made me so mad because there's a lot of parents who don't know where their kids are right now, especially when they're in college and like maybe it's Mars Hill or Montreat or Watauga
Mhm.
or Boone or whatever, and they're freaking out. And you got these people saying, "Well, the government's not letting me help them." It's a very isolated situation, if anything, and the government is doing everything they can. I know those people in the DOT. I know how much they care about getting people getting the roads safe. I know that a lot of people in the emergency system around the state, they don't do it for the money. They don't do it for the glory. They do it because they love North Carolina. And to see people just trash them like that, it's just ridiculous.
Well, what what really gets me about them is, okay, I can't get in to, or I can't get to person X. I can't, they won't let me in to go try to find person X. Well, that's because you going in to try to find person X endangers you. And then it also endangers all the other people that are already officially there looking for people and doing things. So now you hinder their ability. And if you get lost, now you're another person that resources have to be taken away from to find. So you, you sometimes you gotta understand that, yeah, you want to be selfish in that, but you're a speck in the bigger
Yeah,
picture. There's a
yeah.
bigger picture around you.
When you try to find person X, it might impede the finding person one, two, three, and four, and five at the same time because
Exactly.
you're in the middle, getting the way about stuff. Uh,
Now, I will say I'm really upset at Congress that Congress has
yeah,
not come back into session. Um, they should have been Monday. They should have been back, back in
right.
Washington. Um, they're worrying about their campaigns. Some of them aren't even getting reelected, but of course we got to have a full Congress to be able to pass anything that needs to be passed to help with the situation. People don't understand there's only so much you can do with executive orders, and
Yeah.
you can go crazy. You can't spend money with executive orders
Yep.
unless you can executive order money away from something else. And I don't know if you could do that. I don't think so. I don't think executive orders can touch money.
No,
That's
I mean, you can't create money with an executive order. That's for sure.
Well, you certainly can't create it,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you can shift money with an
You
executive
can
order.
you can shift, or you can, if money's going to one department, you can actually reallocate it from a, like, maybe. Uh, I was thinking about how Trump did with the wall. He
Yeah, but
actually
he
moved some money around within the Department of Homeland
defense,
Defense. Yeah.
but that was all with under the same umbrella of budget.
Right. Right.
It was on separate budget, but he
And
was
yeah,
what he did was he declared it to be a national
emergency.
or security
Yeah.
risk, and thus military funds could, but you couldn't. I don't know if you could do the same thing. You could maybe to a degree. You could maybe use resources, and really maybe resources is because he did allocate resources. The 82nd Airborne, activated. Didn't activate. They're already active. He ordered a battalion of them to assist.
Right.
Now that's using resources. It's not generating money. It's using money that's, kind of already there.
Right.
But if money was needed for something, could he declare a security? It had to be something that could be tied to military. If you were going to still say from a military budget or an
Right.
education budget, it's probably going to be something that can be shifted under that umbrella. Uh, but to take it from one department to another, um, from one, oh gosh, yeah, I guess that's the best way to put it. You put it
Yeah.
department, right?
Yes, and
Um,
just a department, maybe Biden can say, well, we found out there's a bunch of Haitian immigrants, illegal immigrants, not legal, but illegal immigrants eating cats and dogs in Western North Carolina. We need to send in, all kinds
e-
of stuff. You know,
exactly.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't be saying that, but
We're going to send in three more battalions
yeah.
to address that situation.
And some people are like, well, why didn't you say so? Yeah, take all you want. We don't
E-
care.
Exactly. So I don't
But
know. We need Congress in session,
yeah.
and I'm really. I posted something on Facebook. I don't think you saw it. Uh, our our favorite troll bait did.
Oh,
The
I saw what you're talking about. I just didn't. didn't respond.
Well, the one that I was referencing is the one that was about where people were passing around a meme. Not another penny, not another penny should be spent until this hurricane looks like it didn't exist. Something along those lines. And I started to create a meme today as a counter to that. Everyone that posted that meme, you should be writing your congressman or woman right now, senators and House representatives, and ask them why they are not in session, and tell them to get in session, to get to Washington right now and address this situation. Because if we
Right.
need money, they're the ones that's going to have to allocate that. Okay, we're going to put 200 billion towards this relief, or 500 billion.
And then we get these people like, well, we're not going to, why are we giving all this money to Ukraine, but we want to spend money for this disaster? And my first thing, they're totally two different things. Uh, what happened to Ukraine has everything to do with a foreign invasion to one of our allies.
Part of it. Let me
And,
just add to that, Jim. We made an obligation to the Ukraine that if they gave up their nuclear weapons, we would
yeah,
defend them.
exactly right.
We said, we want you, we don't want you to have nuclear weapons.
No.
Well, if they still had nuclear weapons, Russia wouldn't have invaded them. But okay, so you do that, we'll let you. We will defend you. The, but now I'm gonna let you finish now.
But I mean, that's the thing is, people are politicizing this stuff to the nth degree. And I'm like, it's not, I mean, I know this is election year, but let's focus on the people that are actually suffering right now in Western North Carolina.
Right.
Let's not try to tie it to another. Let's not try to tie it to Israel. Let's not try to tie it to Ukraine.
Which are
Let's
different budgets, by the way.
do different budgets. Yeah, totally
That
different
shifting that
budgets.
money can't happen. Money's already
Exactly.
allocated for that other stuff, so you
And
can't get that money.
and look at the humanitarian effort we got to do in
Hmm.
Western North Carolina. It's a humanitarian effort at this point. There's a humanitarian effort going on in Ukraine also,
Right.
but a different type. That is a man-made issue by a foreign governments,
Not a
uh,
natural disaster.
not a
Right.
natural one like we have here. So, uh, the other thing is, the, both parties need to learn how to compromise. I do not like what I'm seeing right now with the rhetoric.
Me
We
neither.
need to we
Yeah.
need to tone it down quite a bit. Uh, it's gotten to a point where you can't. If you can say something like it's sunny outside, someone's going to try to turn it into a political comment.
Right.
Uh, I had to tell somebody not that long ago. They started talking to me about politics, and I finally had to say, I don't think do you lack self awareness? You know how uncomfortable it makes people hear you talk about stuff like that? And the guy was a few years older than me, and he had no clue. I
Right.
said, I said, right now it's not really the time to talk about that. If you want to talk about improving the world, that's great. Don't mind to do that. But when you start making stupid generalizations, it's time to go. I'm just done with it all. The
Well,
extremism is just crazy.
don't bring politics into this disaster.
Right.
Um, every I had no question that FEMA would be activated and they would do things immediately. I had no question about that.
Right.
Um, we had National Guard deployed before the storm hit. Um, National Guard was activated for Western North Carolina last Wednesday of last week. Um, I expect good people to do the right things, and uh, so let's not worry about, or let's not bring politics into this person should have done this, or why wasn't this person here doing this, when that, as we mentioned earlier, Biden coming to I don't like the fact that he was here yesterday flying over the airspace.
Right.
Um, I wish he would have stayed away longer,
Right.
another week or 2 or 3, um, until
Yeah.
we're not still trying to find people. So let's stop politicizing this stuff.
Right.
And
I agree with you.
I mean, quite
Yeah.
honestly, I think him showing up is a semi-political move too,
Oh,
ultimately,
I think
right?
so. It's good to give people a certain level of reassurance that hey, the government hears you. We're here, but it's better to have it on the ground level as opposed to up in 30,000 or 20,000 feet up in the air.
But see, he
Um,
could have done that in Raleigh. He could have flown
yeah.
into Raleigh, stayed in Raleigh,
Yeah.
met with Cooper in Raleigh, discussed, talked about whatever, do everything, get on his plane and fly back to Washington. He did not
Right.
have to fly over
Right.
Western North Carolina.
I agree
Did
with you.
not. That did nothing. That did absolutely nothing other than to say he flew over.
Right.
Um,
And George W. Bush did a good job with Katrina when he first came in. Uh,
mhm,
he knew how to keep his distance. He also he wanted to make sure that people, the local, states or the state governments and local governments
mhm.
were taken care of. Sure, there was some bickering going back and forth between like Louisiana governor and Bush, but overall, everything kind of subsided. It
See,
went well.
I thought he did a yeah,
I thought he
we
did a good job.
I thought he did a good job with that, and I thought in a lot of things he did a good job with. A lot of things he did not do a good job with, but there were a lot of things, and that was kind of I think a good leadership moment for him.
Yeah.
Um, the way that he handled Katrina.
Oh,
Um,
and
I, I
Obama and Sandy.
yeah, yeah,
Obama did a great job with Sandy.
and people cried about why aren't they there? Why aren't they doing? It's like they don't need to be. You don't have to be there at the moment. So, like when Katrina hit, you don't have to be there the next day,
Right.
on the ground, getting in people's way. Uh, just make sure the resources are allocated and are there, and anything that's needed is given. So, yeah, it's bothering me all the politics I'm seeing right now
Right.
about this disaster.
Just the negative, and one of it is just downright lying, and
Hmm.
that's what gets me just
Oh,
pulled out.
somebody lied. Somebody lied the other day saying that nobody was doing anything, and had not, you know, I won't, you know what I'm talking about, I'm
Yeah, I
sure.
know exactly what you're talking
Uh,
about here.
yeah, there's no need for that. Why do that?
Yeah.
One, it's easily fact checkable. Uh, so all you do is you make yourself look bad, and two, all you did is you caused some more division that didn't need to exist. That unfortunately some people won't fact check that, and now you got division, more divisiveness going on that didn't need to be spurred up.
Right.
I will say, Tuesday night, did you watch the debate?
I did. It was actually I enjoyed that debate.
Best debate in a long time.
I mean, to
Um,
me, that was the best VP debate since Gore and Jack Kemp in '96.
okay.
That was a good debate, '96.
Yeah, I remember the debate. Um, when you were talking about compromise
Yeah.
and such, they were compromising with each other a lot
Oh
throughout.
yeah, they agreed on a lot of stuff.
There were a couple of a there were a couple of points that each one of them had a bad point. One of them had a worse point than the other. Um,
Right.
Walls had that little bit of problem with when he was in
Him.
China,
Yeah.
and Vance couldn't answer the question if Trump lost. Um,
Yeah.
but you take those two things out, it was pretty
It was a respectable debate.
respectable, and
It
I liked that.
it was it to me. Those two guys showed American values. They were
Uh-huh.
not petty to each other. They were respectful to each other.
No
Uh,
name calling. Yep.
no name calling, and be honest with you, those are two guys I like. You know what? I think they generally like they love our nation, and that was a good thing. And they didn't show anger or you know they showed some humility, which is sorely missing over the last 8 years.
Right.
And I mean
Yeah.
that's the one thing. Humility was looked at as a weakness, and all of a sudden, those two guys showed it, and it showed what a strength it is.
Exactly. So I'm glad you watched it. I watched it too, and that was my. I mean, all the way through it, I was like, "Wow!" I kept waiting, and it never happened that there was a harsh attack. There were times that potentially one or the other maybe should have attacked a point, a position, a policy a little more. I think both of them could have, um, maybe scored some points with their base had they done that,
Right,
but there was no personal attack, there was no you could not if you left that debate disliking the other person and what happened, I don't know if you saw this, but Walls has a very high favorability rating. He has one of the highest favorability ratings ever of a VP candidate, and
right,
he increased his favorability rating. Vance also now Vance's favorability rating is still a negative number, but he improved his favorability. I think it was by 19 points, is what it
right,
was. Walls improved his by 23, and Vance improved his by 19. And so both of them improved their positions as far as what people think about them. And that showed, I mean, that was a direct reflection, in my opinion, of how they both presented themselves um, in the debate. And as far as the favorability, I would have given them both an equal for that debate. I give them both an equal favorability.
oh, I think so
Um,
too.
I don't think I have some concerns about a few of the statements made that were not honest, but
Yeah,
the way that it was done and the way that things were handled, um, I really I like, man, why can't we have more debates like this?
yeah, I like that. And both of them showed their vulnerabilities. Uh, what I liked is both of them seemed to reflect about what they did in the past that they may want to change. Waltz with Tim and Swear, and uh, uh, Vance with some of his positionings about abortion and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
see, I don't now, while I think Vance, again, his presentation, everything was phenomenal. I'm not buying that he has a position change on abortion. I'm not
I don't
buying
think he does in the least bit either.
one bit. Um, Walls could have been just Walls should have just come out and said, "Look, I was wrong about the time that I said I was there. I was there a few months later. Okay, I'm sorry." You know, he should have done that months ago
Yeah, he
and
should have
just
cleaned
got
that up.
yeah, just got ahead of that at the very beginning so that it wouldn't be an issue. If you bring it up, it's like, look, I've already addressed that and move on. So, from those points, there's a lot that you can pick at on them, but from a being cordial to each other, stating that they agreed on certain things. Do they actually agree? I don't know. I question whether Vance agrees with everything because I've got a feeling that one of the things that he was told to do, and he's smart enough to do it, is look, this is where we're hurting. These are the areas that we're hurting. Uh, with, and we're losing support in these areas. We need you to address those areas. So he's smart. Trump's not smart enough to do that, but
Uh,
Vance is.
well, let's how I put this without offending half of our audience. Trump's never going to admit he's wrong
No,
about
that's right.
anything.
He would never step back on
Yeah,
anything. He never walk
yeah,
anything back. Right.
yeah. The thing I could do, or someone could do, they could say, you know what, Trump. A lot of people say that you just talk too much. Every time you talk, it costs you 20,000 people, 20,000 votes. And what do you do? Just start double down like, no, people love hearing me talk.
He would talk more.
And talk even more,
Yeah. Whereas
I'm, s-
Vance did, he curtailed some of the things that he's like the anti-Trump. He was like
oh yeah,
just the opposite of
it was hard not to
uh,
like him.
yeah.
He showed humility, a certain level of vulnerability, respect. Uh, I mean, all those are American values,
Hmm.
and I'm glad that somebody on that ticket has those American values. That's so important.
I
Uh,
I
Tim
agree.
Walz
I agree.
seems to have the same values. Be honest with you, I find him a lot more relatable than I do Kamala Harris.
Oh, no doubt. I like Walls.
I like Walz
As
too.
a human, he seems like he'd be a great guy to sit down and just have good conversation with.
Yeah,
He's more relatable with for sure. He is certainly more of our kind of person,
yeah,
meaning class of person, etc.
right.
Um, I don't know. I don't know if Vance falls into that same category, but he at least see. I knew going in because he's a lawyer, so he's trained in debate. Um,
Right.
Trump's not a good debater. I don't care what people kept telling me he's a strong debater. He's just a bully. Vance is a debater. Vance is a good debater. He's trained and skilled at it, so he knows what you need to do. Um, he knows the things you need to do
And how to say it.
and how to say it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's kind of manipulation when you are agreeing with your opponent on something. Okay, I agree on that, but so you're kind of level things down and you can maybe gain a little bit of control. Neither one was able to manipulate the other. Kamala could manipulate Trump at the drop of a hat,
Oh,
but
she knew how to push his buttons, and I'm like, it was almost like having, let's say, you're a 16-year-old person and you got a 13-year-old brother, and you know there's what little buttons that you could press to make the 13-year-old go off,
mhm,
and she was able to press those buttons, and he'd have a temper tantrum. And
exactly.
I didn't like that debate. I didn't like that debate at all. I thought that debate was it didn't show people that I thought had a great candidacy. Obviously, one of them I thought was more had the more of the temperament than the other. But
But at the end of the day, that's all you got out of that is one could control
their temperament,
themselves, their
yeah.
temper and their emotion and the way that they do things, um, the way they handle things. And yeah, that maybe tells us something in how that person will interact with a foreign leader, etc. Can you be manipulated or not? But honestly, I got started getting a little tired of watching her manipulate him. It
Yeah,
was like,
I am too.
uh,
It was fun
maybe,
for a while, but now I'm like, okay,
yeah,
let's get back to business.
I'd
Uh,
like for them, yeah, I would have liked for them both to have talked more
yeah,
policy than they did. Actually, the VPs taught more policy, and that's the thing that you have to take away from this, though, is the policy that Vance talked is 100% or 180 degrees from Trump's policy.
right.
Um, so it'd be interesting to see how he would implement that, especially with during the debate. He kept bringing up Kamala's been. Well, I think does he call her Kamala? I don't
Camel,
remember
that's
now.
what he calls her.
Yeah, so uh, Kamala's had the position for 3.5 years. She hasn't done anything. I would have loved to have heard Walls turn to him and say, "So you as vice president, how are you going to implement that policy that you just said?" So how you going to implement that on abortion or whatever?
Yeah.
Those were the kind of things that they each could have uh, poked holes at each other.
Oh, I agree with you.
Vance could have pushed more legitimate more on immigration. He should
The
have
one,
dodged Springfield. He should have said that's another one of those things that he should just get out from behind.
right. And
Uh,
one topic that's neither party is talking about and they need to talk about are the big three: Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. We're
mhm,
getting to that crisis mode again. We need to have some serious conversation about those three programs. And
right.
neither I have serious doubt about these programs right now about their viability. I'm 53 years old. I'll probably be drawing Social Security in 12 to 14 years.
Mhm,
I know you're a few years ahead of me, and you might be drawing it before I do. Medicare, I want to make sure when I turn 65, I have health care,
right.
uh, and they need to work on funding. They need to work with it. That's where you got to have compromise. You got to have enough Democrats and Republicans willing to say, you know what, we've got a problem. Let's put our differences aside and let's work on this to get together. Let's don't be talking about, some type of conspiracy theory or about Antifa or whatever you want to call it. Don't throw George Soros' name, which that means to me that's just nothing more than a dog whistle. Uh,
Yeah, anytime somebody mentions George Soros, immediately all they've done is flagged themselves as you can't be trusted in what you're going to say.
yeah, you have
Uh,
zero original thought because you inherited it from you learned it from somebody else.
exactly. But what I believe is that the Democrats are not going to do anything for health care. They're not going to make any changes. And I don't know if I don't think that Republicans would make a positive change towards it. Um, and I don't think they can make the change. So I'm going to expect that the next 4 years, we're not going to see an improvement in
Yeah.
healthcare. We might see an improvement in some cost of drugs, but as what we're seeing now, but as far as the actual policies and plans that we need that you mentioned,
Right.
there's going to be nothing done to it.
I mean, we can't do anything in healthcare if you do another business cuts. It went from 35% to 21%, the corporate income or the
Mhm.
corporate income tax. Now, Republicans are talking about doing a 15%, knock it down to 15%. That's you're just going to
That's
explode the debt.
that's wrong. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's wrong.
yeah,
That's why the debt exploded in under Trump. That's why
yeah.
the debt exploded so much because he made that cut. And you
Two
cut it more, it's going to go even worse.
two ways you can make your physical house in order. One is to raise revenues. The second is to cut expenses. How are the
Hmm.
two things you can make a bunch of people mad? One, raising revenues. Two,
Raising,
cutting
yeah,
expenses.
exactly.
And that's why we need bipartisans support. I like to have, back in the 90s, you had your blue dog Democrats, you had your kind of your main, I think they call it the Main Street Republicans. They used to be kind of like the Nelson Rockefellers. There
Hmm.
were enough, you know, moderate Republicans and moderate Democrats that they can meet and
Could
come
get
up with a
something
consensus
done. Yeah.
and then, send it to the president. And now that the moderates, whenever there's a swing election, it's not the liberal Democrats losing seats, not the conservative Republicans losing seats. It's the people in the middle that are
It's the
white
people in the
close.
middle. That's right.
And we got the most lopsided. If you look at our when it comes to the number of like right here is the left, here's the right. Uh, you get a lot of people here at these points. Then you get them to the moderate to the center, very
Hmm.
few people. I will say like we got 435 seats in the House. I'm gonna say maybe 15 or 20. I reckon would say are
Are
moderates,
classified as moderate, yeah.
and maybe 60, 65 or nothing more than moderate liberals or moderate conservatives. But it's not much. It's not a working majority.
Right. No, it's not. It's not enough to work with,
No,
at all. Not to get the things we really need done.
right.
Um, so yeah, I'm you and I would hope that anybody that happened to be listening would be in the same boat, of you're really a moderate. Um,
Oh yeah, I'm
but
a moderate.
but
I've always been a moderate. The thing about it though is I don't like extremism, and I've seen one party that's just totally off his rocker right now. And
right, there's no doubt that extremism has there's more extreme on one part of the political spectrum than there is on the other. But
and and the thing is the whole thing is the buck stops here. That's what Harry Truman says whenever there was a
uh-huh.
blame. He's like, it stops with me. It's my responsibility. At that first debate, you know, when asked about Trump if he was to blame for January 6th, he said no.
All right.
Where's the leadership in that? I mean, that's anyway.
Exactly. Uh, oh boy.
We got real political.
We did, but we need
We
these
needed to blow
mod
some steam here because I mean this football season is just in horrendous shape
right.
right now.
And hey, if anybody's listening still, you should see we're not extreme on either side.
No,
Um, either way, we're both heavily moderate. I'm not sure how to define myself
you're a
because
pragmatist.
I want to be a libertarian though. I mean, as far as in thought. So I just want what's best for
You're what I call a little L libertarianist instead of a big L libertarian.
right.
I don't think the big L libertarians are all that small L libertarians all the time. Like the lady from South Carolina in 2020, she was small L and big L. I liked
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
Gary
I like
Johnson, same thing.
Joe Joe Jorgensen. I voted for her.
Yeah.
So, I had her on Talking Preps in 2020. I had her on as a guest, and we all interviewed her. Um,
She was a cool
so
lady. I liked her.
yeah,
Um,
I sometimes she sometimes takes some of that big L stuff though. Um, and as I look at some of the views of what she's supporting right now, um, if she has to support something over something, so let's say, I just can't see from a purely constitutional point of view how you vote for Donald Trump.
yeah,
How you could support Donald Trump. Just from a
yeah,
purely constitutional, just keep it to the Constitution, which should be the most important element of your vote should be about the Constitution and not about policy.
well, I voted
Um,
for the guy that has the same year and same birthday as my mother, both born November 20th, 1942, and that was back in
okay,
2020. So I voted for Biden.
right.
Um,
I it, uh, I appreciate that.
and,
Probably if I'd have known what was gonna happen on January 6th, I suspected, but I really didn't think it would I didn't think something like that would happen. Then I might have voted for Biden just strictly from a constitutional view. But
right.
Johnson, I voted for him in 2016. I didn't vote for Hillary. Of course, I didn't vote for Trump. Uh, I voted for Jorgensen in 2020. Um, I've been voting the libertarian ticket for a while, and yeah, I'm going to vote Biden this time. I'm not voting third party. There's no third party. There's actually no, even if it wasn't Trump running and it was somebody else, um, there's no good third party candidate this year.
Well, you know
I
what?
might,
Now I gotta stand up for my last name namesake, Cornell West. Come on now,
uh,
that's a great last name, man. I like Cornell, but I'm not gonna vote for him.
no, I'm not going to vote for him either. I just can't see myself casting a vote for him. The Libertarian Party sold their soul. Um, and the Libertarian Party is really just Republican light. They're not really libertarian in general.
Yeah.
They were Republicans. The party was formed by some lightweight Republicans that wanted another platform to run on under. So they're
Now,
not
how about Jesse Ventura? Did you like him?
to some
Because
degree, yeah,
he
yeah.
had some libertarian leaning
No, he
about him.
definitely had libertarian leanings.
Yeah,
I thought he was a good governor.
yeah, I thought
Um,
so. He was part of the Reform Party.
right, exactly. So yeah, I mean, if he were running right now, I'd vote. Well, this election, no,
I'm
I
voting for
would not.
Kamala, but
Yeah, I'm voting for Kamala, but if it were, and see, that's tough because if Chris Christie were running,
he win.
I I might have voted for Chris. I might vote for Chris Christie this
Yeah,
election.
good chance I would too. I like him. He's one of
Yep.
those guys that showed enough humility that I like about it.
Hmm.
He seemed like a real person. Policy wise, he might be a little bit to the right of me, but he's fairly mainstream. John Kasich from Ohio, he's another one
Hmm.
that I liked. Larry Hogan from Maryland, he's a very good Republican too.
I was
Uh,
hoping Justin Amash would run, but
well, he's become a Republican again.
yeah, I know he's run. Well, he's run so he could run on the Republican ticket.
Yeah,
I think his values are probably still what he was calling to be libertarian. His
right.
problem is that he's not pro-choice, and a libertarian should be pro-choice.
Another
Um,
guy I like is Adam Kinzinger.
I like Adam Kinzinger a lot, and
He's
if Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger were running on the same ticket, I might have considered that. That would have been a good ticket. I think that would have been a dangerous ticket for Kamala.
well, we live in a very strange world. We're in 2024. Dick Cheney is supporting the Democratic
Oh,
president,
that
and
is
Alan Dershowitz is supporting the Republican candidate.
exactly. It's a very strange time.
And
No
RFK
question.
Jr. all Trump now.
I think his brain's gone. So I think he's just looking for power. That's all.
He, he ate too much contaminated bear meat.
He
He's
had
on
another. He got another worm in his head or something. Jim, I think he's lobbying for a cabinet seat, and I believe that there is an an FEC violation. FEC, right? Um, um, you're not supposed to offer your uh, endorsement for a political seat,
right.
but I believe that's happened. I believe that Trump has guaranteed him a cabinet seat.
Maybe an ambassadorship to Ireland or UK or something. But
I don't know. I don't know why so many people. He had support at one time. He had about 15% support, but that dropped quickly especially when Kamala came into the picture. His support dropped tremendously. So she
like a
picked
rock.
up, yeah, she picked up a lot of people that were supporting him. Um, I just can't believe anybody was supporting him. But anyway,
He just didn't. He didn't have a. When Trump said he had concepts and plans,
uh,
that's exactly what Kennedy had. That's what his whole thing was. He didn't really have a true statement on anything, and that's what drove me crazy about it. He was all over the board about abortion. He was all over the board about mask, and then he pretty much said, "Well, you know what? We don't need to have any type of vaccination." Blah blah blah.
yeah, he's an anti-vax person, so
Yeah,
I knew that about him when he announced, and I'm like,
right.
no, you're anti-vax. You're not. You definitely don't have my support. Period.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, he did kind of flounder around a little bit.
I mean, right. As far as like presidents in our lifetime, though, like Clinton, believe it or not, wasn't. I mean, he wasn't a libertarian per se, but he had some libertarian values about him.
Well,
Um,
if you look at politics, if you look at the political parties, Democrats are more libertarian leaning. They're less author. Let me rephrase that. They are
not
less
authoritarian.
authoritarian
Yeah,
or less autocratic, however you want to look at it. They do like to have executive power. They do like to have that power, so it makes them not great libertarians, but they're less so than, say, Republicans. So
right.
they do have that tendency towards more liberties, but not enough to be Bernie Sanders is close to a libertarian.
Yeah,
He's close, but most
I
are
agree.
most Republicans definitely are not.
The guy over in Oregon, Ron Wyden, he's pretty close to a libertarian too.
Yeah.
He's a real likable fella. Libertarians tend to be nice people. I mean, for the most part, they're a lot nicer than authoritarians are.
Well, that's tends to be more the closer you get to that libertarian leaning in you, the more that you respect others. In other words,
Right,
you don't look to infringe on other people's space, um, and you look for them to not infringe upon yours. So
right,
you have your rights, I have my rights, and you do what you want as long as you harm nobody. I'm okay with it.
right.
So the closer you get to being a libertarian, the more that comes in, and thus the more kind you can be. But what you find, Jim, if you get into groups with people that call themselves libertarians, you always get these people. You're not as libertarian as I am. Um, it's funny sometimes to see some of these hardcore libertarians argue with each other uh, about how libertarian you aren't and they are. Um, when the fact is that libertarian spectrum it's a big spectrum, both left and right economically and north south, power wise,
Yeah,
all the way down to anarchy. You can be an
yeah.
anarchist and you're a libertarian. You want to be left alone you want everybody to leave you alone. Uh,
You think Calvin Coolidge was a libertarian?
a bit, maybe.
He was a fair
Again,
politician if there ever was one.
do what now?
He was all about laissez-faire when it comes to economics.
See, Joe Jorgensen is a right-leaning economic libertarian.
Right,
So she kind of on the north south in the libertarian spectrum. So she was in the bottom right quadrant,
right,
about in the center of the bottom right quadrant, maybe a little more to the right, excuse me, a center down and about 70-80% to the right. She believes in free market and She's a true capitalist, I guess,
Yeah.
in the sense of free trade, um, more so than what your traditional Republicans are.
Now, does she support like same sex marriage, marriage
Yeah.
equality?
Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah. Very much. So she's a true libertarian in that respect. Of
yeah,
you can do whatever you want to do, just don't harm somebody else. That's really the philosophy of a true libertarian is do whatever you want, harm nobody else. Um, so that means you can take drugs if you want to, just don't harm somebody, in your act of doing them. Uh, Act and be and whoever you want to be. She also believed very strongly in. Now, I don't know if she would have actually tried to enact this, but we used to ask her questions like, "What if I wanted an F-16? Could I have one?" And she'd be like, "Yep, of course you should be able to have one." Um, and an F-16 being the fighter
yeah.
F-16. Um, so on Second Amendment, um, she's very strong in support of it. So First and Second Amendment, actually all the amendments, she's a very strong. She's a staunch constitutionalist, I'd say,
Right.
and would stick to believes in every not some of the amendments, but believes in all the amendments. And the progression of what the amendments have done for us, like the 14th, for example.
Now, how about
Um,
for like background checks? Would she be for that or against that?
I think the answer to that, and I'm trying to remember what her answers were to that. She's against red flag laws because of the danger that they can create. Um, you could red flag anybody and just start
Yeah,
going crazy. Donald Trump, for example, told in a meeting, I don't know if you remember this or saw this, but there was a meeting after one of the school shootings when he was president. And he said in the meeting, and Mike Pence was there in the meeting, and he said, well, sometimes we should just go confiscate the guns. And Mike Pence said, but there's due process. And Trump said, no, we sometimes you just got to go take the guns. Um, so Trump was advocating in that meeting, like if there was a red flag, he was at one time in favor of red flag laws. So if somebody raised alarm about someone, then just send the police in and take the guns without having to go through some kind of due process. Um, she would be obviously
against that.
staunchly against that, yeah, without question. And that was her concern with red flag laws is that you could raise the flag on somebody that you didn't like, and they could lose gun access. There would have to be a whole lot of control around that, and I still believe there should be control around that. But I believe in red flag laws, and I believe in increased background checks. I believe in increased training. I do think you should be able to own an AR 15, but I believe you should have to go through training to get it. Sort of like you have to go through training here to get a concealed carry. You should have to go through some certifications to get certain things and background
Yeah,
checks. She would be like, no, no, no to that stuff.
yeah. The with like the assault rifles, um, I'm kind of like my biggest thing is if you're going to have one of those, I want to make sure that you periodically have some type of recertification of owning it, and that's including like some type of mental wellness check.
I
And
agree. I agree.
that's the thing that kind of gets me on that because somebody that's saying today in 2024 may
Hmm.
not be mentally healthy in 2027 or 2029. And
Exactly. Um, so I have no problem with that. Having, I would have no problem if every couple of years you had to, if part of the deal to get an assault rifle, and should step back a second. You know, you can't own every weapon. You cannot own an M16. Well, excuse me, you can own an M16. You have to pay a tax stamp for it that I think is either 15 or $25,000 to be able to own a machine gun, an automatic weapon. Um, so right off the bat, we're not allowed to own every weapon that's made.
with the like the AR-15s, would you be against having some type of mandatory, oh, I don't know, GPS chip or whatever, where you can locate the weapon at any given time? There's a
Here's my
liberty, there's a civil liberties issue with
there's a
that.
there's a civil liberties issue, and there's also the reason I want to have an AR-15 is not so much the guy that might break into my home, as much as if it were so if we were to go to have a civil war right now, so let's say Kamala wins, there are some on that other side that are talking about having a civil war. Um, I would want to have a weapon to defend myself I could defend my family with
All right.
in case we got caught up in that. If for some reason we had a tyrannical government take over, a tyrannical party to take over and then start enacting Gestapo-ish type of activity, we can say like things that started happening in 1937, 38 in Germany in that time frame. Um, I would want an AR for that. So if I had an AR and it had a chip in it, and my AR was for the purpose of having to now be used against a tyrannical government, well, they would know where I'm at. Um,
Yeah.
so there's civil liberties issues around that.
Right.
So Jim, I don't know. I get your question about it because then you could know if it was on a school grounds.
Right.
I'm assuming that's why you were bringing that up.
Yeah, I was thinking about school grounds and stuff like that.
Exactly. I think that you've got a situation there that, yeah, it could help with that. So we got that liberties thing of where do my liberties end for the safety of something else? So I don't know. That's a hard one. I do think if we made it harder to buy, meaning that you had to go through a more strenuous background check, you had to go through training. Maybe you do have to pay a
Right.
stamp, but maybe not a $15,000 tax stamp or $25,000 tax stamp, but maybe you have to pay $1,000 tax stamp to be able to
Right.
have an AR-15.
Well, this is a good conversation. I appreciate this, Dale. This is I
Yeah,
didn't I really didn't know what to talk about with football today because my heart's not into it right now.
no. Well, I think we covered what we wanted to cover
Yeah.
early on about what's happening in the state.
Yeah.
I do see there's a question here, Bandy's or Lincolnton.
Uh,
Um,
that's going to be a decent game. I'm going with Bandies on that one though.
yeah.
That's going to be a decent game. I'll tell you what we'll do next time, Dale. We'll talk about. We'll start with George Washington. We'll go through the presidents.
You know what? We should have a political non-Carolina varsity discuss. I talked to Justin Jones about having a constitutional. He teaches Constitution, civics, history in high school. He spent the summer in Washington um, studying the Constitution more, and I've done a lot of study of certain amendments: the First Amendment, Second Amendment, 14th Amendment, Section 3. I did a lot of reading, debates, and such around different amendments, and I'd love to talk about that stuff too. Um, and Justin said he'd join us. So maybe we can do something with him on that. I
Where's
had
he? Where's he teaching these days? You know, is he in Cabarrus
last
County?
the last I knew was Marvin Ridge, but he was at Concord and then Marvin Ridge, and then I don't know. I'm not sure where he's teaching right now. I think it's either Cabarrus or
Union
Union
County.
County. Yeah, maybe Cabarrus because he gets barbecue. He comes to oh come on, my barbecue place here in Charlotte. But he'd love to talk about this stuff. I mentioned this to him at the start of the season. I saw him at Panther Stadium at the two games that were there, and I talked to him about this topic and told him that you and I sometimes talked, and Langston has talked about wanting to talk politics. He and I have had some great conversations, just concerning general stuff in politics.
Right.
Um, oh, Carrie says she'd love to join. She shares similar views. Um, I don't know if Carrie's stuck around this entire time listening to us, but we could talk a long time about this stuff.
Oh yeah.
The presidents, yeah, we could go through all the presidents. I know most of the presidents, Jim, but I don't know if I know them all as well as you may.
I can do them in order right now. You got one's George Washington, two is John Adams, three is Thomas Jefferson, four is James Madison, five is Monroe,
My guy
six
right there,
is I like
Madison's.
Monroe.
I like Madison.
Madison, yeah, Madison, a good guy. Six is John Quincy Adams, seven's Andrew Jackson, eight is
I don't like
Van
Andrew
Buren.
Jackson.
I don't care for
Just
Jackson either.
no Jackson.
Martin Van Buren's eight. Number nine is William Harrison. 10 is John Tyler, another bad president. 11 is Polk. 12 is Zachary Taylor. 13 is Millard Fillmore. 14 is Franklin Pierce. 15 is James Buchanan. 16 is Abraham Lincoln. 17 Andrew Johnson. 18 Ulysses S. Grant. 19 is Zachary B. Hayes. 20 is Garfield, James Garfield. 21 is
Hmm.
the guy that had the prostitute is for the 4 years. Gosh, it was back in 1881, 84. Chester V. Arthur. Uh, 22 was Grover Cleveland. 23 is Ben Harrison. 24 was again Grover Cleveland. 25 was McKinley. 26 was Teddy Roosevelt.
I like Teddy a
27.
little bit.
Oh, I like Teddy. Well, I like
Yeah,
McKinley too.
yeah, McKinley, but I like Teddy.
27 was Taft. 28 was Wilson. I don't care for Wilson. I don't think he was a good
You don't like
president.
Wilson? Okay,
No.
well, I'm not a big fan, but
29 is Harding. He was a horrible president. 20 was Coolidge, who, to
hmm
be honest with you, had more to do with the Great Depression than the next one. 31 was Hoover. 32 is FDR. 33 is Truman. 34 is Eisenhower. 35 is JFK. 36 is LBJ, 37 is Nixon, 38 Ford, 39 Carter, 40 is Reagan, 41 is George H.W. Bush, 42 is Bill Clinton, 43 is George W. Bush, 44 is Barack Obama, 45 is Donald Trump, and 46 is Joe Biden. I did it.
See, if all you did very well of the modern presidents. I like George H. Um,
Yeah, I liked him.
I
The
liked him
only
more
thing,
than his son. I liked
oh,
him
I did
more
too.
than Reagan. Actually, I liked him more than Reagan.
I did too. Be honest with you, I prefer Bill Clinton over Bush. Uh, and it had more to do with Bill's energy. He was a better
Hmm.
communicator. And be honest with you, I think people related to Clinton a lot better than Bush. But Bush was a
Right.
good man. Even the younger Bush is a good man. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
they were
there are
probably not
things
much presidency.
there are things I like about the younger Bush as well. And I didn't say, but I'm a decent fan of FDR. Um,
LBJ was the guy that's the hardest one for me to really. I have never been so polarized by a president. He did a lot of good stuff domestically, and
uh-huh.
then foreign policy, he
Yeah.
he went downhill. He had a lot of authoritarian views. At the same time, he had a lot of libertarian views. With that Great Society was just a landmark achievement. A lot of good things happened about that. Passing the civil rights legislation, big win. I
It's
think Gerald Ford had been a good president if he had more than 2.5 years.
so in hindsight, as I look back at things, I question myself as believe I've told you before as to I liked Nixon in the time frame and I liked Reagan
In the time.
in the time frame. I was indoctrinated maybe. Um, so when Nixon was president. Um, However, I think Ford was a good guy, and I really like Ford, and Ford, unfortunately, I don't know what would have happened if Ford had not pardoned Nixon, if he would have been able to defeat Jimmy Carter. But I do think if Ford had gotten another term, he'd have been one of our better presidents, especially of the modern era. Um, I thought I was in the time frame very much Ronald Reagan, sold by his charisma, his leadership, which are good, but really his economics are bad.
The one thing I'll say about Nixon that I don't like, the biggest, I mean, Watergate to me, he
Sure,
did stupid stuff. Watergate was
exactly.
nothing compared to when he started messing around with the federal funds rates. And that's
Uh
something
huh.
Trump tried to do too. He's trying to put pressure to keep the rate low.
Right.
Nixon did that, and he got away with it. And what happened to inflation back in the 70s went up. You had old
Hmm.
on top of it, you had the old embargoes and the whole line, the gas shortages,
Right.
uh, and then you got Jimmy Carter, a great man who did not trust his cabinets. He was a
Yeah.
micromanager. Uh, if Carter had people around him that he could trust, he'd have been a very good president. But it was a recipe for disaster. He inherited a mess, not of Ford's doing. It was more Nixon's doing more than anything
Right.
else, and never could right the ship. The best thing he did was hire Paul Volcker as the Fed chairman, and then Volcker and Reagan made news by, increasing the interest rate up to I think at one time it was 21.5%,
It was up there. Yeah.
and killed inflation. And then inflation went down. Finally, they were able to lower the interest rates. Jobs went up, and everybody got nice, high, and happy back shooting a lot of the we had a lot of debts, a lot of deficits under Reagan.
Yeah. Our deficit. That's really for the most part when we really started getting out of hand with deficit spending.
In 1978, we were the largest creditor nation in the world. By 1988, we're the largest debtor
Debt,
nation in
yeah,
the
the
world.
largest debtor, exactly.
So, well, Dale, I'll
So
tell you what, I don't know about you, but my voice is starting to lose it
yeah,
here.
no, I went longer than I thought we would. I'm sorry.
No,
uh,
it's good with me.
that's I like talking this other stuff. Tomorrow night, by the way, I think I'm going to Palisades South Mac. Is
Oh, I'm going to Northwoods and Seaforth. It's the Battle of Pittsburgh.
okay.
And the reason why I've never seen Seaforth play, and there's not a darn good game around me that
Nothing
I've
around you.
that let's put it this way: it has to be really a great game for me to want to go at this point of the season. Uh, and it just wasn't close enough. That's like I'll drive 30 minutes to go see Northwood and Seaforth play, but
Well, Palisades is 4-2. Um, I think they're favored to beat South Mac, but I think it should be a good game. That's why I'm going to it. Is I believe it's going to be a good football game, not a mediocre game, but I think a competitive game. So that's why I'm going to it. There's not. I mean, if I had time, I'd go over to Monroe. Monroe and Forest Hills are playing, so that's a
that's a
that's
good
a
one. Monroe should
that's
win that one though.
yeah. I think Monroe should win it, but that's a good rival game though. That's why I would. And next door to me is Crest and South Point are playing
You know, in that Monroe Forest Hills battle, Forest Hills historically has been the better program. Historically, until
historically,
I'm gonna say in the last 12 years, it's definitely swung to the Monroe side.
right? I'd say in the last 12, 15 years, yeah, something like that. When did they play? When did Monroe play at Carolina in the
High Point
state
Andrews
championship?
was 2012.
2000. So I would say sometime right about that time frame.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
they.
you know, when the Faircloth left Forest Hills, the program went down.
Hmm.
Not Faircloth, who was the guy? Lowry. I'm thinking of John Lowry. When Lowry resigns, the program
Right.
went through some lulls. But they're last year they had a really good season.
So I don't know that there's a whole lot of that Bandy's Lincolnton game could be a good game, but that's too far for me for tomorrow. I, as we said as we started out, it's almost hard to have the interest to go out, but hopefully it'll help me feel better mentally to see the kids playing and maybe forget about what's going on to the west of us right now.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
All right. So tomorrow night, 11 o'clock, right?
11 o'clock, we'll connect.
Yep. We'll be on Twitter Spaces for anybody that happens to be listening.
Yeah,
There's two people on here. I don't know if there's actually two people there or not, but 11 p.m. Twitter Spaces and Jim, let's have a real conversation. West Lincoln and Bunker Hill on Saturday.
ooh,
Um,
that's a good game right there. I'm I might be going with Bunker Hill on that. West Lincoln, what's the word for it? They just haven't. This is a
like
game I think West Lincoln would love to win and write their season a little
right,
bit.
yeah.
But I'm gonna go with Bunker Hill. I think they might have just a little bit too much at this point. But that's a game that West Lincoln could sneak up and win that game. They lost to Bandy's 17-15. They lost to North Lincoln. They did beat Maiden last week, or actually they beat them yesterday, I guess, 19-14.
Last night, she says.
Yeah, last night. So Bunker Hill. I know they lost to Randleman earlier on this season. Yeah, actually, they've lost to Randleman. Uh, that's an interesting game. That could actually go either way. You know, more I think about it, that's uh, maybe the despair or discrepancy between the two programs may not be much of anything. Game is at West
Hmm.
Lincoln, so I don't know.
Huh.
That's a good one.
Well, I'm sure Carrie will be there. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I had to go back and look at before I saw that win against Maiden. I was like, yeah, I have to give that to Bunker Hill, but beating Maiden, that's a I think that's the
That's
second
a
year in a row that they beat Maiden.
that's a good win. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Of course, you never know. I don't want to take anything away from them, but when you're playing in the middle of the week, it's an off schedule game, and you never know how that impacts things. But still, it's a good win, even if that does impact things.
yeah, that's a good
Um,
one.
that's a good win. That's a good game to have under your belt.
Got that right.
All right, Jim.
All right, Phil.
And Carrie, if you're still listening, yeah, we'll do a political talk and have you join us.
Yeah, that sounds like a winner.
All right.
All right, Dale, you take care of yourself.